Thank you.
Hello. We are live.
Hello.
No, that sounds like a
believe it.
lie.
We're live. We're live. It's
We're live.
real.
We did it. It's
No.
real.
It's happening.
Is it though?
Building
real.
tension. It's not building tension. This is just me trying to be very explicit with the fact that
No,
we are
it's-
going live to the other people on the call.
No, it's definitely building tension as I sit here on a Twitch ad on my own fucking stream.
It's
Oh,
literally
wow.
just
We should warn, like, right now, huh? Welcome to a mature stream, everybody. I'm gonna swear a lot.
nice, good start.
Yeah, great start. It was very smooth. It's Monday, and you know what that means. It's time to torture teenagers. You are watching Going Critical, and this is Hellions of Carnocht. I am joined today by a wonderful, wonderful guest, minus the illustrious Danny, who is still not with us.
Oh, you make it sound like like they died.
You're dead.
It's a little death.
Wow.
When you've not been,
Not
when you've not
that
been in
type of
D&D.
little-
Yeah. Thank you, Ned.
Oh my god.
As I just get completely derailed. Danny is still not home, but will be with us next week, hopefully.
Yeah.
Until then, how about you fuckers introduce yourselves?
Wow.
No,
You
wait.
don't have to be rude.
I mean that with the utmost affection.
Fucker affectionate.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
fucker
accept.
affection.
I accept.
Hi, I'm fucker number one. My name is Emily. I play Zanthe. He's a changeling. He's a warlock. He's a sorcerer. Yeah, I'm an artist. This link to my art on Instagram and Twitter below my post art. We're doing this week kind of. Sorry, you might be able to hear me opening something.
I was wondering what that was.
I was like,
He
Emily.
doesn't look at the group chat. I will mute after I talk. Anyways, we're doing fun facts this week. We're doing not about our characters, but what each of us as people, players, like who is our favorite NPC and PC, right? We're gonna do both.
Let's do both.
This is to clarify, I didn't set this fun fact. Otherwise, this would just be stroking my own ego.
Yeah.
Emily chose it.
No,
Yeah.
I chose it. I was very excited. So, my favorite. Oh fuck! I have to choose one now. My favorite PC. I think it's gonna be Tink. Maybe if I had to say.
Oh.
The boy. He's got green hair. He's a good vibe. I do love Monty though because he is my trash best friend. But my favorite NPC is also actually Belial.
I see.
Cute.
It's a
I
good
like the gold
I
pack.
like the boys so much. They're good.
It's very fair. It's very fair.
Hello everyone, I'm Ned. You can find me on the internet as @NedLazarusWolf. I play Monty, who is our half-elf rogue / druid. He is not having a great time. And my fun fact about myself for my favorite PC, it's really sad because Danny's not here, but I fucking love Yana.
Hell yeah.
It's a
love
good
Gravian. And I mean I love everyone, but
I mean, we all love everyone. That goes without
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
And surprisingly my favorite NPC is Calriel. It just surprises me. I was like thinking this morning, I'm like, who is it? And I was just like, no, it's Cal. I was like, why is it? But it is. So yeah, that's me.
He's really come through for us.
Should we
Yeah.
say who the NPCs are, or should we just assume that everybody watches every episode? Like,
I mean,
Cal being Tink's brother. I don't know.
Yep.
yeah, they'll figure it out.
Eventually.
General Cowriel Goldpetal, brother of Tink.
Yes.
Yep.
Surprise disaster.
I mean, I still love the fact that I've like sassed him in his second episode that he was in, so I will always love that. So
That's fair. That's fair.
Hi everybody. I'm Dodger. I play Yulie. She's a little anxiety wizard turned rogue. Or maybe she's always been a rogue.
who
Twins.
knows?
And my favorite PC is Zanthe. He's
I
just
do
a
not deserve that. But
he's so aggro. He's the attack dog, but like also sweet. It's amazing. It's such a good balance. And yeah, I think favorite NPC, I do really love Balthazar, but I also love toxic shitheads, so I love Ilya. It's hard to choose. But they're all great.
You don't have to choose. I will make them both extra toxic for you.
Oh, thank you. That's so
You're
sweet.
Wow. Wow. Oh, and hello, I'm the last fucker. I'm Nick. And I am at NictorHorse / at Nick Tattoos everywhere. And I play Tink, and he is a high elf artificer cleric, and he's never done anything wrong in his whole life. And I think my favorite PC, I mean, I feel like it's just the girls. I feel like we needed them so much. They came to us in our time of need. And then they're very adorable together, and I love them so much. And the gremlin energy is just so good of these two tiny people keeping us in check.
Yenna's very good for that.
Yes.
Yulie not so much.
I want Tink and Yulie to be able to get up to more bullshit gremlin
I know.
things, 'cause
Yeah.
they make a good team.
They make such an ineffective but fun team.
Yes, exactly. They can't talk. Just don't talk, only do. It's fine.
Nerd hangouts win.
It's just all us stuttering at each other. It's beautiful, and I love them. And kind of same on NPCs, where I'm like, I obviously I adore Belial. And I would like to go on the record with like Nick doesn't trust Belial fully. Tink, yes. So you may think Nick's like, oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know, man. But I also love toxic pieces of shit and really love Ilya. Spoilers.
God, what the fuck is wrong with us, dude? Every time I play a game and there's a character who's just saying the most heinous shit, I'm like, oh no, I love them.
I know.
What's wrong with me?
What are you doing? Everything I learn about you is so fucked up, and I love it.
Do more of that.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's good we have Jess as a DM right now.
Just rubbing hands together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can make this more toxic. That's music to my ears. Did you ask for problematic? I'm here for that.
I knew you were gonna go for it. I knew it.
I am predictable.
Yeah. No, you just can't.
I guess
on.
I am a bard in real life, and yeah.
Well, I guess last introduction. I am your DM. It's pronounced Doodle, but you can find me all over the internet as Jess Taylor. Just Google Jess Taylor Comics. I come up. And I'm here to make these guys' lives both great and difficult at the same time. It's a hard job, but somebody has to do it. My favorite PC No, I'm not going to play favorites. Don't worry.
Oh my
I'm not gonna
god,
do
thank God. Like,
it.
we're
All
like,
of us
don't choose your
barfing.
favorite
Yeah,
kid.
we're all like with bated breath.
See, this is where I just say that you cannot separate out a PC from me because you all weave together so inextricably that, like, to isolate one character is to just be a dick.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to have a favorite.
But now you have to pick a favorite child. So.
Oh man, favorite NPC?
Mm-hmm.
Abraxas, hands down.
I thought it would be Balthazar.
I definitely thought of Braxis.
Yeah.
We just got done saying
How
Yeah,
much
that
we
we all like
Well,
toxic
see-
the
shit.
toxic shit is king.
Like, your icon is Balthazar. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it can't very well be Abraxas. Are you kidding me?
that's true.
I'm looking at it from the standpoint of who do I like to play the most?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, Balthazar is fun, but very wryly derisive. Abraxas, on the other hand, is just here to fuck shit up and have a good time. So.
He is unhinged.
Abraxas was like a close second to Ilya, but I feel like I've learned so much bullshit about Ilya lately.
Yeah,
I
even
feel like
learn it too.
Yeah,
feel
one
like
day you guys will learn it. It's fine. Give me a
close second.
minute.
Because I was like, is it Calriel or is it Abraxas? I don't know. I love them both. I just love the ship to Calriel and because Abraxas is a David Bowie ass motherfucker.
I like the nice NPCs.
You do, but they're there for you. So
Yeah, thank you. Just for me.
the only
Just for
reason that
you.
wholesome people exist in this game is for Emily. But with the with intro, wow, oh my god.
Take two.
Okay, 5 like verbal trains pulled into the station at that point. Let's go for that again. The joys of live TV. With introductions out of the way, I shall tell you that this is a live actual play D&D podcast stream. Wow, that was a mouthful. We use Theatre of the Mind. And while we practice safe streaming at home and safe D&D methods, we would encourage you guys to also join us in that. And if anything happens during the stream that makes you uncomfortable in any measure, please don't feel as though you have to stick around and wait out the scene or just get through it. We would much rather that you step away and that you make yourself as safe as possible. We have a Discord if you would like to bring that scene to our attention, or if you would just like to talk to other people who are watching the show. It's a pretty chill place. I recommend it regardless. And with that said, I'm looking for our thingamajig. I am still on mobile. Fair warning. So if you get any weird audio issues or it takes me a second to look something up, it's because I'm split between a phone and an iPad right now.
Your voice sounds excellent for mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I will just look at my very expensive headset and say, what the heck?
I mean, it would.
While I'm wearing my really old iPhone headphones.
Hey, if it works,
Yeah, it's
Don't
true.
knock it.
we could lie to you if you want.
Yeah.
This is true, you could. I much prefer the truth.
Okay, great.
But anyway, last time on Hellions of Carnocht, after seeing Belial, Monty summoned Tink and Yulie back to Atticus House. Yulie goes invisible and sneaks around the party, discovering gossip, an angry father, and 2 siblings studying necromancy? ... Question mark. Who knows? Tink and Belial go for a walk together. Zanthe meets Hex again, and the two both think the other is cute. They're just a pair of cuties. Monty got really drunk and was helped to bed by Lawrence. Meanwhile, Yulie discovers that the 2 students possibly studying necromancy going through... Oh, wait. Nope, wrong. Misread. Sorry. Yulie discovers that 2 other students are possibly going through the loops as well and affected by the time variance. That was the messiest summary I've ever given.
But it
But
covered
sliding right
everything.
into the
Summary I've ever
That's
written.
pretty good. Like,
game. Heading into the game. Those of you left at the party have been scattered to different corners. Yulie, you stand on the beach of the lake, looking out at where 2 students have just disappeared after the waters had parted and swallowed them whole. You decided, in what the DM refers to as a fit of sanity, not to follow them.
I know. What's wrong with me?
What would you like to do? There is an orb of light beneath the water that you can see right now that is just heading towards the center of the lake.
I guess I would stay long enough to see what the orb does.
It gets to the
Like-
center of the lake, and you see it flicker before it seems to shrink, getting smaller and smaller and smaller until it's swallowed by the depths.
Okay. So it seems like it went toward the middle and then down. That would be my assumption.
Fair assumption.
Okay. I would go back to Atticus then and make sure nothing's on fire with my good buds.
A valid concern.
Yeah.
sweats and Zanthe.
Heading back to Atticus, as close to the dorms as you are, you do notice on the newly brightly lit campus 2 figures just a little ways away, Balial and Tink.
I no, they can have their moment. It's fine. I think she probably hesitates because, as we all know, she's nosy, but she's trying to be good with her buds, so she'll leave it.
There's a minute where she's like, wait.
What are they doing though?
Is that a legitimate question?
No.
No. It's their moment. It's their moment. I hesitate, but I keep moving because I'm a good boy.
Roll perception.
Perception?
Mm-hmm.
6.
Nice.
You hear the faint chatter of the party inside Atticus House, and alongside the beat of conversation, there's the soft strains of music. You don't notice anything else.
Okay. Then I just keep going inside, I guess.
The halls that you are met with are packed. There's nothing but a multitude of people filling every amount of space. Each of them appears to be armed with a drink and some modicum of laughter. As you get closer to the Atticus entry, I would like you to roll me one last perception check.
Okay. Oh, a nat 20.
Where before you had seen 2 of the more upper echelon of students of the nobility had been talking to a ginger-haired man who looked very well-to-do, but very out of place.
Right, who I think is Monty's dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
you hear that same voice has started yelling from the entryway.
The entrance to the room we were in, or the entrance to Atticus House?
The entrance to Atticus House. As you get closer, it looks as though he's been pushed out of the dorm room and into the hallway and is starting to bang on the door. And as he bangs on the door, making the door itself rattle on its hinges, you hear this out of place man, very close to what would appear to be like middle age, graying around the edges. Tremont, let me in. My son is in there. Let me through that door. And nothing but laughter from the other side. And someone who sounds suspiciously like Hans says, "Piss off, old man."
Oh no. Okay. I'm going to, if you said that the hall's like packed, right?
It's very busy. Like it's you can move through the center. It's very much, you know, when you're at a convention and the cosplayers have all just kind of sat against one wall and then there's like traffic against the other. It's like that.
I'm going to move where I believe I will not be heard by the man at the door. And over the walkie-talkie, I'm gonna say, I think I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I think maybe Monty's dad is here, like literally right outside of the room that you guys are in.
All of you can hear that.
Um, quick question.
Go for it.
Where am I at this point?
We left off and you were still talking to Hex.
So are we in the bathroom still?
You were going to try and find somewhere to summon your familiar, if I remember rightly.
Okay, so that would mean kind of close to the hall, right?
Yes, I would say at this point you two had gone to grab an extra drink, or Hex had gone to grab an extra drink. So you would be in the main common area of the dormitories, and the door that Yulie is on about is the door into the common room.
Do I see Papa Soul?
You do not see Papa Sullivan. Instead, you see what amounts to a gaggle of students led by Hans, holding the door so that it doesn't go in, but the door is shaking. They are all laughing uproariously.
I love this motherfucker. So his dad is outside of Atticus House. He's not outside of Monty's dorm, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, cool. Good to know.
You can actually see that a couple of students have been enlisted to try and move furniture in the way of the door. And it's almost as though they're building a barricade.
These are good fucking kids.
I love this fire hazard. Zanthe, do not dare cast a spell.
In fact, the moment that Hex figures out that people are moving things in front of the door, grabs Zant's wrist and just goes, "Fuck yeah," and drags you over to start piling stuff in front of the door.
Yeah, I'm not gonna resist. That sounds good.
Monty, what are you doing?
Upon hearing that my father is here, I just completely shut down. And Monty just like, he freezes where he's standing and just like starts shaking.
Point in time, you are being assisted by Lawrence. Lawrence, the man that you had met at the Bone Garden. Lawrence, the man who you had spent an inordinate amount of time with over the past 2 loops. Solely for the reason that you think you might be a little in love with him. Lawrence, who doesn't know you anymore, other than the fact that you are someone who is incredibly drunk, who is currently propped against his shoulder, And as you start to shake and the panic sets in, you feel Lawrence kind of shifts your weight just a little bit to better support you. And it's like, come on, it really can't be that bad. Let's get you to a bed, shall we?
I just heard that one of my friends saw my father standing outside, and I
Well,
yeah.
fuck. I'm taking it from your disposition. That's not a good thing.
No, that's putting it lightly.
Right. I don't suppose there's a back door?
Can I do a history check to see if I remember if there's a way out? That's not the front
Go
door.
for it.
No, I know I have to go through the window, but I'm drunk.
When the player does a history check to see, can I remember it when I'm drunk?
That's a 14.
You can remember that there is a window that you should jump out of when you're drunk.
Oh no.
Specifically, the skylight in yours and Zanthe's bedroom can be unlocked and slipped through.
We can get out through the skylight in my room. There's not another door. It's not very fire safe.
Really? What's an oversight, especially for a place with so many casters? And Lawrence heads towards the doors, but there's a pause at every door that he stops in front of, and you can tell that he is trying to read the names on each door.
So I remember which door is mine, so I can sort of go. No, it's like the like kind of not quite drag, but at least pull in the right direction.
Roll a history check.
That's a nat one.
God.
You can't remember
Yes.
which door is yours. To be fair, you haven't spent much time in it lately.
Nope, it could have been a completely different room this loop.
So you can't remember. If anything, like the hallway seems like it would just make a really great room right now.
The hallway would what? Make a really good bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go for it.
So, on the spell cause fear, it does it doesn't say that the target needs to see me, just that I need to see the target.
Yes,
But
the target does not need to see you.
the target would become feared specifically of me. Can I try to scare the shit out of Monty's dad to get him to go by using cause fear and then following it up with message?
Oh, go for it. Yulie, you are invisible right now. Anything you want to do to fuck with this man is totally on the table.
Fantastic. All right, let's see. He'll probably make this. He has to do a wisdom saving throw. 12.
A wisdom saving throw that meets 12.
Yes.
Hey. I get out my d20 for the first time tonight. Well, that was a nat one.
Beautiful.
Like father, like son.
Fantastic. Yulie's gonna move in close. And with message is going to say, "You need to go," and touch his arm while invisible.
You see the moment that you feel the fear magic leave you, like a chill on the air, that Mr. Sullivan pauses with his hands against the door, a look of mild panic starting around the corner of his eyes. And in his fear, he starts to bang against the door even louder.
You sent him in
Once,
the wrong direction.
twice, 3 times. And the demands of "let me in! Let me in!" get louder.
I'm gonna use message again and say, "Into the night, go."
There's something out here! Let me in! What the hell is wrong with this school? And you can see that the violence that is all over Mr. Sullivan and the way that he's just inclined is getting sharper.
Shoot.
It was a good shot.
It was. My kiddo's in
Yeah.
here, so I need to step away for a sec. Sorry.
That's okay.
I tried.
Zan,
Hi.
roll me perception.
I would love to. Oh, but not with these dice. Hold on, they're very slow. Keep forgetting.
As we all shun the D&D Beyond
D&D.
dice.
Yeah.
Believers.
17, which is really good for me.
17?
Yeah.
Fantastic. You hear everything Mr. Sullivan is saying on the other side of this door. The fact that what was before simple demands to open the door is now turned into panicked threat.
I don't see him, right? He's on the other side of the door.
Oh, he's on the other side of the door, but with every bang now, everybody leaning against the door kind of judders a bit.
Okay, let me look at my spells really quick. It's all sight. He's just gonna kind of like quietly like talk to Hex. That's my friend's dad.
Oh, fucking shit, no.
Yeah, it's not good.
No! What the fuck? This guy's a loser!
I know.
Fuck. Is your friend here?
Yeah.
Ugh. Sorry, that sound was a sound of utter torment. What the fuck?
No, I know. I also Is
Mm-hmm.
there like a window above the door or a way that I could get a visual sight on this man, or is it just completely walled off?
Roll me perception.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna re-roll that because it was a 1. I still have lucky points, right? I'm just checking. Yeah.
I love that you specified for everybody watching that you have lucky and are not just re-rolling it because you feel like it.
Yeah. So it was a natural 20.
A nat 20?
Yeah, on the re-roll.
Nice.
To go from 1 to a 20 is great.
I know. It feels so powerful.
With a nat 20, you see every time the door judders just a little bit, you can see Mr. Sullivan.
It's like a fucking cartoon, like the door. Oh my god.
You would be surprised how much a piece of wood will bend before it breaks.
Okay. Hold on. I'm just trying to see what spell would be best for this.
So I'm now enjoying imagining this like it is Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Okay. Would I be able to cast suggestion on him from only seeing him every couple of
Yes.
buildings?
I will say yes because you know where he is, and there is a constant gap between the door and the frame that's coming up.
Okay. Yeah, he's gonna cast suggestion on him and just fucking yell, "Just go back home!" Like.
What does Mr. Sullivan have to roll?
Wisdom
suggestion.
16 is a save.
Wisdom 16. I would also like you to roll dexterity for me.
Okay. A dexterity
This-
save or check?
A check. Just to see if you can time the spell right.
Oh. It's really low. Do I re-roll it? I don't know.
That's entirely up to you,
I
my
have
lucky
2 more
friend.
rerolls left, but one of them is Tides of Chaos. Alright, I'll do it. Okay, that's better. 17.
17?
Mhm.
Okay, with a 17, you can definitely get that spell through the door. What was it he had to beat on the roll? 16.
I think it was 16, let me double check. Yeah, so wisdom 16.
Okay. Wonderful, that's an 8.
Yeah! Go back to your fucking, bankrupted manor, fucking Papa Sullivan.
Is that what you say in suggestion?
Yes!
And the outline of suggestion.
Oh, so you can magically influence a creature that can hear and understand you. Creatures that can't be charmed or immune to this effect, so I don't know if he's a half-elf, if that's gonna be a thing. Um, he can't hurt himself. Let's see. On a failed save, they have to complete the task to the best of their ability.
Right. Okay. Unfortunately, regardless of the failed save, and you see the magic connect, you feel the weave make contact, but it slides right off him. He is
Oh,
immune to charm.
God damn.
Right.
I should have known.
Tink also heard the Monty's dad is here call.
Tink would have heard the group message, yes.
Yeah.
The Rocksap message.
The Rocksap message. So I think for a minute, because he and Belial are just chatting at this point or enjoying each other's company, I assume. And for a minute he tries to act like he didn't hear it. And nothing's wrong, and then he's like, no, that's dumb. That's dumb. It's like one of those ones where I need to take this. And I think he'll just look at Ba and be like, can I just need to, I have some sending stones with some of the people at the party, and I think something is going on. Can I just I'll just be a sec.
Of course, do you need any help?
Maybe, but I think it's good. I think he'll be good. I'm just gonna he's just pointing at a stone on a bracelet kind of thing. Literally I'm just gonna be on the phone for a second.
Belial kind of steps back to give you some room.
Yeah.
But he gives your hand a little squeeze before he does.
He squeezes back. And yeah, I think he's just gonna be like, Balthazar, is my brother still there?
There is a moment, a very long moment, in which you get no answer before you just hear a very hard done to sigh. Why precisely do you need your brother?
Okay, long story short, Monty's dad being here is a really bad thing, and the person who will scare him the most in the world is my fucking brother. I could show up, but I don't think he'd believe me if I said I was a gold petal, to be honest.
You hear another hard done to sigh. I feel the paternal need to point out that should the general turn up to what I am assuming is a student party, you will have essentially called the cops.
Yeah, that's literally, I'm calling the cops right now. That's literally what I'm doing. Shut the whole thing down.
Right, shut the whole thing down. I'm not being the bad guy for this.
Everyone else can hear it happening too. Like you'd all be able to
Yes,
hear
everybody
this
on the group chat, you can hear this.
Yeah, I'm just gonna like, no, Tink, I think we can fuck him up. We don't. It's fine. He's kind of like, no, maybe don't cancel the party.
But finding a way out, away from him, I'll be fine.
Is somebody with you right now, Monty?
Yeah. Lawrence is with me.
Okay.
Monty, can I ask,
Yeah.
how are you? Are you just talking to the air, or are you like talking into the stone?
Oh, I'm talking to the air. I am
Lawrence is kind of
trying to like I have the stone on my neck and I'm just like trying to reach at the stone, but I'm just like I am
Are you
so
just like
drunk.
talking down in your chest? Like
Yeah, talking in my
Oh my
chest.
god.
there's a pause on the group chat in which Lawrence reaches forward and kind of takes the stone that you're very drunkenly trying to murmur into to just whisper into it and be like, This is Lawrence. I am with Monty. I have no idea precisely what is going on, but he is in no state to be doing anything currently at this point.
Yeah, well, we gotta get his dad out of here, Lawrence. Hi. We can't. It's just it's bad news bears. Either Monty has to get out of here, or his dad does.
Right, through the window it is then, I suppose.
the window in my room, first door on the on the left, from the common area. It's open. Don't did there's shelves. You can climb them. Don't knock anything over. It might explode.
Thank you so much. We have been sitting in the hallway for 5 minutes.
Do you know that by heart, or did you just make that up?
What?
That is
where your door is.
legitimately-
In
No, that's
relativity.
where Tink's door is.
That is legitimately where Tink's door is on the map, yes.
Amazing.
It's just things I know.
So there is a little bit of silence again for a little while, and then you hear Balthazar on the rock sap being like, Am I sending the cops or not?
No, you fucking narc. You're not sending the cops.
Okay, first of all, it's
Don't
me.
call me a fucking nut.
First of all, it's me. I'm being the narc. And fine. Then it's fine. I'm not coming to help with this.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, and Tinkle kind of like half-heartedly sign off, because you can't really like sign off of this group chat. But yeah, I think he'll just like shrug and look back at Belial and be like, I tried. I think they're fine.
You see Belial kind of has both hands just together in front of his mouth, just being like incredibly worried as he watches you. Are you sure we can head back?
I mean, we can. We can.
Yo,
Okay.
what's Monty's dad got on him?
Roll me investigation, my invisible friend.
Great. A 14.
Monty's father possesses a rather nice nobleman's coat and a belt attached to 2 daggers, several potion bottles, and a little book that may or may not be a checkbook.
I want to take the book.
Congratulations, you are in possession of the checkbook of the Sullivans.
Great. I put it in my cardigan.
Is there anything else that you would like to do? Or are you just committing robbery?
No, just rob the man blind.
Well,
I
most of
would like you to roll sleight of hand with advantage for being invisible.
with advantage. I do love that. Okay, hold on. They're both 17s plus 9, whatever that number is.
26, amazing.
I was going to say more than you needed. So, yeah, Mr. Sullivan does not realize that Mr. Sullivan has just been robbed blind.
Good. That's what we want.
Instead, Mr. Sullivan's panic is slowly getting higher and higher. His bangs upon the door louder and louder.
We're gonna have to fucking attack your dad.
Can I I'm gonna try one more time to like redirect this dude.
Mhm.
Oh, but you can see Mage Hand.
You can see Mage Hand, it is visible.
And we did try a suggestion, and that type of charm ain't working.
You can just use your regular hand because you're invisible.
I was gonna say, well, I didn't know if like I'm not sure about the limitations of invisibility. I didn't know if like if he grabbed me, am I fucked? You know?
Yeah.
I have +0 strength.
Technically, we've pushed the limits of invisibility a little bit already, because you shouldn't be allowed to make a sound or touch an object without rendering yourself visible. But that's never made much sense to me, so that's fine.
Okay. I was gonna say if you want to say that the second I took that book, I was suddenly visible, I'm fine with that. I think he's panicking enough. He probably wouldn't notice, but
roll me insight, actually, if you can, Yulie.
Yeah.
And Zanthe.
Okay. I do have a thing that I could do
22.
after this, just to...
Okay. 22.
No.
Yeah.
Yulie, you realize this man's about to lose it with fear. He is very close to lashing out. There is a tick that has started on one of his eyebrows, and the anger with which he is slamming his hand against the door is so much that he started to bloody his own knuckles.
Oof. Okay.
I have a thing I would like to do, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna cast. I keep forgetting I have this, but I'm gonna cast a silent image, kind of with hopefully within his peripheral of just Monty, just kind of chilling, and if he sees the Monty's gonna turn and start to run away.
Okay. Let me just see if you can see that through the door.
There is, if he wants to discern, no, he's gonna cast it on the other side to where he's like in the hallway with,
I will say you can't do that.
Oh, well, I don't want him to run into, that's gonna make him want to go into the door even more if I do that.
I'm saying that solely because you don't know the lay of the land exactly
Uh-huh.
in the hallway.
Okay.
Because you can't, there's not a clear view through.
Yeah, if he can't cast it in the
If
hallway.
you did, I can't guarantee that you wouldn't cast it like half in somebody and freak everybody out.
Yeah, if he can't cast in the hallway, I don't think it's a good idea, but...
I would like you to roll perception.
Okay.
See, this is why I said call the cops.
I mean, Balthazar is next to the cops most likely, and if he ain't doing shit, then
no,
he never does shit though. This is who he is.
First of all, I requested that the cops be brought in.
We could look.
Zanthe said no.
We are a fucking room full of casters. We can take this one angry man.
Yeah, but you shouldn't fight him. Is the thing.
Yeah, get Calriel in here. Surely he heard this.
No, Tink was literally like, can you bring my brother over here? And Zanthe's like, no.
It's fine. We can handle it. There's a lot more shit I can do when I can actually see him.
God.
I got a 13 on the perception check.
Most of the people at the party at this point who are in the common room have taken up building like the barricade, but also there is a chant of asshole just going up around everybody, just asshole, asshole, asshole. that's kind of gone around the entire room as though they're taunting him from the other side of the door.
He's gonna kind of lean like his head over to like Hex. Do you have anything that could get him to go away? Because I don't think he can get charmed, but
I could set fire to the door.
I don't. Yeah, I feel like that wouldn't be the worst idea, actually.
Setting fire to the
And-
only exit wouldn't be the
Sure.
worst idea.
It's Zanthe.
I know.
I was gonna say it's Zanthe.
Fire, it's Zanthe.
Yeah,
This is why Tink doesn't go to parties.
yeah.
Sullivan's always crying.
Yeah.
Things get stuck on fire.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I feel like it's not. We could do that. I have
Puts their
mending.
hands up
Yeah, what's the worst
and
that could happen?
shrieks, and is going to run forwards with both hands extended, just yelling, "Burning hands!" as she heads towards the door.
I fucking love her.
You see several people just kind of dive out of the way.
Holy shit, I need to be myself.
And Hex dives towards the door, laying both hands flat upon it, and the door starts to catch fire. It starts as a smolder, eating away at the outer layer of paint and wood until the fire spreads, crackling.
Zantha's just looking at her like, she's perfect. Like...
Roll me perception, Zanthe.
Okay. Oh, 9.
Do hear the faint, oh shit. Just a second before the fiery door opens, totally taking Hex out because she doesn't jump out of the way fast enough.
Oh god.
In the act of yelling burning hands and getting everybody to run away from the door, there was now no longer enough pressure against the door other than a couple of chairs that were very horribly kind of shuffled in front of it to stop it from flying open, revealing a livid and terrified Mr. Sullivan, who immediately launches forwards to stumble and crash into the barricade.
Okay. Cool.
Can we see how far Monty's gotten trying to get out the skylight?
All my
We
shit
can
is
indeed.
farm effects. I swear to God.
Monty.
Alright. What do I need to roll?
By this point, I need you to roll me a dexterity. Just a straight up dexterity. I just want to see precisely how you're doing before I describe this scene.
I'm so sorry. I got a 5.
Wonderful. You are scrambling in Lawrence's arms as Lawrence tries to heave you up a chest of drawers, tries to heave you against a series of shelves, up to the latch of the skylight. It is not going well. Between the two of you, Lawrence isn't quite strong enough to heft you, and you are not quite dexterous enough to help him. So right now, you two are kind of just standing on top of a chest of drawers, doing what appears to be like slightly lifting each other up and then dropping.
Oh my God.
Oh, idiots. Oh no.
Is there anything
And
that you would like to try and do in assistance?
what I would like to try and do?
Yeah, I mean, you can do things. Any ideas?
I can do things. Can I do things? Hold on, just let me check what I can do. Oops. Um. So I am
You are.
going to
Mhm.
wild shape.
Okay,
And
that definitely helps things.
yes, it does, because I'm no longer a gangly, awkward 6'3" half elf. I am now a teeny tiny kitten. Because
And
that's all I'm shape into.
Lawrence sees in front of him where there was a very drunk person. There is now a tiny ginger kitten.
Mm-hmm.
And for a moment, Lawrence is scared, like, shocked, I should say, rather than scared, into absolute stillness and silence. Before he leans and scoops up the kitten and starts to climb the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
Tink, what are you doing?
Only heading back if Belial's like, we should really go back. And I think trying to like loosely explain that like, okay, yeah, like Mr. Sullivan's like, I've heard he's a big dick from a bunch of Monty's siblings, and I tried to call my brother, and then like cuts himself off. Yeah, as they're like walking back.
I suppose if you're really not wanting to go back, we can just head to the house.
I mean, I would like to do that.
So long as you're convinced that your friends will be okay.
But no, you're right. I should probably go check on them. But can we still?
I think I have never seen you look quite so reluctant.
He definitely like laughs a bit. Oh no, Dukes, your icon has for some reason
What?
just reverted to your whole
Oh my God.
Discord display.
Please excuse us while we have minor technical difficulties.
Okay, I hit it for a second. It just really caught me. Oh wait, no, it's not. There. I hit it for a sec.
It's like bouncing every time too.
Okay, we're back. It's fine.
What the fuck?
For some reason, Dodgers, specifically Duke's like reactive image gives us a lot of trouble.
Yes, today we've had a lot of issues with it. I'm sorry. I don't
Oh my
mean
God,
to be
no.
ruining the RP with the face of Wilk.
No, I'm crying a little bit. Okay.
Wonderful.
I just like cried laughing as that because I just watched the stream feed the whole time. Oh
God.
It's like when you were talking, Diggs, it was bouncy too, so it looked like it was just panicky.
Yeah.
So it's just like what? Okay. Okay, we're back.
Thank you for bearing with us during that minor technical difficulty.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah. Okay, where were we?
Well-oiled machine.
Well-oiled
God.
machine. Yeah, so
I've never seen you look quite so reluctant, is where we are.
Yeah. I think Tink kind of laughs and like a little and starts heading back, and he's like, so yeah, no, you're right. I really don't think that they're I think we should go back but I would like to. I don't really want to stay here tonight.
You should know by now that there is always a place at mine. And he will put his arm around your shoulders and kind of give a soft laugh as he tries to direct you back to Atticus.
Yeah, I think they'll walk back. Tink will kind of like lean back against him. And
You lean your head on Belial's shoulder, he leans his head against yours as you're walking.
Yeah, and at far too leisurely a pace, given that he knows it's going to be absolute fucking chaos when he shows up.
Yulie, you have just seen the door fly open, and the man that you were trying to harass into leaving with fear has just stumbled through headfirst into what appears to be a pile of chairs, cabinets, sofa cushions, random pieces of like kitchenware, several red cups. He's just covered under everything right now.
Yulie is very confused.
There is still a soft chant of asshole going around everybody.
I think, assuming that Yulie heard everything that's been said over the Rocky Talkies so far, she would move away a little bit and get back on the Rocky Talkie and be like, "So about calling someone over here, is there a reason we're not doing that just to get him out of here?"
Yeah, we can call the cops.
Cops, please. To Balthazar. Cops.
There is another third long-suffering sigh
Cops,
that
please.
rattles through the rock sap, through your sending stones. And just like, fine.
Thank you.
And you'll just get and this is why you should just listen to me when I say things from Tink as he's like walking back.
Wow.
There's a small pause, and then the general tells me he'll be there in 5 minutes. Try not to burn the dormitories down.
Alright,
Speaking of which, Zanthe, roll perception.
Zanthe being like, I can't make any promises.
Yeah. 10.
There's a faint sizzling from behind the door.
Is Hex okay? Because she just got fucking blasted. Like,
Still behind the door.
she's behind the door?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, he's gonna go behind the door and make sure she's okay.
In getting to Hex, now that the barricade has been collapsed on top of Mr. Sullivan,
I can Misty Step if that makes it easier.
I would make you roll dexterity, so if you want a Misty Step instead, go right ahead.
My dexterity's pretty high, though. Yeah, I'll just go through it.
Roll me dexterity.
Saver check.
Let's say a check.
Okay.
Actually, let's make it an athletics.
No, wait, what? No,
acrobatics. Acrobatics. Sorry, I was wrong. Let's
okay,
make it an
acrobatics
acrobatic.
is fine.
You're essentially parkouring, so let's see.
Okay, 22.
Zanthe has also been given a bit of inspiration. Just letting you know.
Thank you. 22. Oh, without the inspiration, because I'm gonna hold on to it for a roll. I need it.
22. With the 22, would you like to step on Mr. Sullivan as you go?
That's a really good question. Yeah. I would.
How would you like to step on Mr. Sullivan?
Maybe like the inside of his knee or something. Like,
Step on his fingers.
I feel like that's a little too much. I thought about it.
Are you aiming to cause damage?
I'm just hoping it will slow him down a little bit.
Roll me an attack roll. So roll me a d20.
Okay. Do I get advantage since he's prone?
Go on. Why not?
Okay. Oh, that's just still the same number. No add, or do I add my what is it? I don't know how to make it.
If
Is
you
it
have any,
unarmed?
if you have any proficiency with unarmed strike, go for it.
It's 10 total.
10 in total for the attack roll.
Yeah.
Did you use your inspiration?
Oh no, I didn't. Thank you.
Nice.
It's a D8, right? Okay,
Yeah.
16.
It is a d8. 16? Great. With a 16, yes, you can indeed step right in the back of his knee and cause like some crunching damage as you like move your foot back and forth just a little bit.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just a clumsy teenager, and he just goes. Get hexed.
Roll me damage.
Okay. Well, it's my strength modifier, right?
Yes.
So it's nothing.
I heal him for 1.
Yeah.
We'll say that you did 1 damage.
Okay.
On stumbling over the barricade, incredibly gracefully, to just grind your heel against the back of Mr. Sullivan's knee,
Hmm.
you make your way over to the door,
Yeah.
where you see little pink fingers curled around the edge of the door.
She's stuck in the middle of the rubble.
Yeah.
Okay.
The door is kind of stuck open with how the barricade collapsed.
Okay. Well, I'm really glad I checked. Um. How big is the area? Is the area she's covered under fire too, or is it just? Is it like
Perception.
okay? I totally do not take offense anymore to you telling me that I cause so much chaos for your games. 16 for perception.
With a 16, you see, like, there's a little bit of Hex's hair on fire. Just a
Oh
little
my
flame
god.
just going up it.
Okay, does shape water? Can I make water? Hold on, let me check. Uh, is there any water around?
Water, there is alcohol, there is mixers, there's a
Okay,
bowl of ice.
anything that's non-flammable and close to me, I would like to grab.
Roll me an investigation and see if you can find anything that's non-flammable that's close to you.
Oh, that's 18.
An 18, yes. You see one of the like red cups that have been proliferated at this party is just kind of sitting to the side that has something that you really just kind of hope is not alcohol in it.
I'm gonna just taste it really quick just to make sure.
Roll me intelligence.
Okay. Oh, I have a +1. What the fuck? 18.
18?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not alcoholic, or at least you can't detect any alcohol in it.
She's just gonna dump it on his tiefling.
You hear ah! from the other side of the door.
Sorry, he's gonna try to move the rubble.
What?
Your hair
was
was
that?
on fire.
I'm fucking fire resistant! And she's kicking at the door from the
You're
other side,
not
you can see.
fire immune.
Stop! It counts! The door's kind of like shuddering with every little kick that she gives it.
Oh my god. Yeah, he's gonna try to unbury her.
Roll me strength, just so that I know how far you get before the cops turn up.
Okay, can I use if I use Mage Hand, does that assist me or no?
Mage Hand, I believe, has its own stats for strength.
No, I mean just to help me carry So it
Oh
just
yeah,
says
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
If
yeah.
you're casting it to also do it, then yes,
Yeah, yeah,
you can get
yeah.
advantage on that for sure.
What do I roll? Oh, strength, you said?
Yes, strength check.
Oh, that's really good for me. 18.
Damn, that is really good for you.
Yeah.
I rolled a 19.
That's more like it.
Yeah.
Tink, as you're heading back to Atticus House, you see the small figure of your brother running towards Atticus House, getting slightly larger with every step, including what appears to be 3 people behind him.
I think he like looks over and he's like, "Oh man, he actually like bringing people. This is probably for the best."
Monty,
Ow.
you and Lawrence are now kind of standing precariously on the skylight in the fresh air, as Lawrence has kind of got you cradled against one shoulder. And is like, now what am I supposed to do with you? And is trying to find his way around a campus that he's clearly not familiar with.
Well, once we're off the skylight, I'm going to I'm going to turn back into myself.
Okay.
And yeah, I figured out how to do it without panicking.
Yay!
Yay!
Um,
Character progression.
Well, you're just gonna do it straight up, yeah?
um,
Are you jumping out of his arms first? Is the question.
yes, I'm jumping out of his arms first. Like,
Oh, thank God,
I don't
because
know,
you
you're
really
pretty
failed
drunk.
that dex check. So
That's no fun.
yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure that we were off the, like, away from the
from the
skylight. And
Yeah,
then
no, you are on
I
solid ground now.
I have jumped out of his arms before I turned into myself again.
As you turn, or as you try to turn back by will,
Mhm.
I would like you to just make me a Constitution save.
That's my save to con. La la la. That's a 10.
Okay. With the 10, you strain and you pull for the weave. You do not turn into a human being.
Oh no.
You've got 2 legs.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No.
You've got 2 little arms.
Oh no.
But as you kind of flail your arms, they make a strange flapping sound.
I don't have a bird.
Oh no.
Am I a bird? Am I a bat? What am I?
Do you try and say anything?
Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just like what's going on is what I'm trying to say.
It comes out as a "Bah!"
I love this.
You are a crow. You are a
A
crow.
crow. Oh.
Well, scratch that. You are a raven specifically because you have seen Baz quite a lot.
Oh no.
And as you try
Sorry,
and walk, your little legs don't really let you walk, and you kind of fall
Mhm.
over.
Oh. I'm a drunk
So
bird.
you are a drunk raven, yes. And Lawrence is kind of crouched down beside you and just kind of taps your beak like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you didn't mean to do that.
Can I just need to just check if I can understand.
With wild shape you can.
Yeah,
I
with
can?
wild shape,
Okay.
you can understand people with wild shape.
Yeah. And so I'm just gonna nod and like nod and try to like put my little beak on top of his hand. Just like trying to be affectionate.
Well, it may have been an accident, but it's a very cute one. And he kind of scoops you up and is like, "Oh, I suppose we ought to find somewhere safe." And is going to trot off with you.
Cool.
Do I
And I just
see this?
caw like okay.
Zanthe and Yulie,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you hear the arrival of the cops. The military.
The literal fucking military. I love it.
you hear the arrival of Tink's brother before you see it happen, and it's kind of like a ripple through everybody. You hear somebody yell like, "The military's here! Fucking roll out!" And suddenly people are just
Bail.
running. Everybody's bailing. Everybody's running. Everybody's trying to get out. Mr. Sullivan's legs are kind of kicking from underneath all of the stuff that he has failed 3 rolls now to get out of.
Good.
And the moment that the ripple of the military is here turns into the cops are here, as it's just running through the hallways, you see everybody scattering.
How's Hex doing at this point?
Point, you have managed to get Hex out from behind the door and are both just kind of picking your way through the rubble. She looks a little bit singed, but yeah, she's fire resistant.
Okay. Do I know that Yulie's there? I don't, because she's invisible, right?
Yeah, Yulie's still invisible at this point.
Okay.
You were the one who did make her invisible though.
Beep,
I
beep.
know, I can't see it.
How long does it last?
An hour.
An hour.
How long has it been?
Coming up on an hour. It's been a while, yeah. I'm gonna say kind of because the Mr. Sullivan thing happened quite quickly in D&D world physics.
Yeah.
That you're probably looking at 45 minutes right now.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And yeah, if Tink didn't see Lawrence leaving out of the door.
That would have been on the other side of the building. He did not leave through the door.
Yeah.
So Tink is Lawrence looks like.
No, but he would have known that someone was gonna like pop out of his window. But yeah, I think he just kind of shows up like rather leisurely behind like maybe like a couple minutes after Cal shows up with Balial in tow, just to like see how things are going.
Well, the first thing that you notice, Tink, is a wave of students scattering around these 4 figures of the military.
Yeah.
They're trying to leave from the front, they're trying to leave from the back, they're trying to leave from the side entries. You just see students just kind of flock outwards like some kind of implosion.
Yeah.
Yulie, Zanthe, is there anything that you would like to try and do before General Goldpetal gets there?
No, I mean I'm just helping Hex and keeping an eye on the good old dad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think Yulie's just like making sure Dad stays where he is.
But you, as you look towards Mr. Sullivan, notice that Hans is sitting on the chair that is on top of Mr. Sullivan right now.
I give him a thumbs up and just good Hans, good job.
I am wonderfully happy to help. I figured that this man is an asshole since he was trying to get into our party and does not belong here.
Yeah, he doesn't ever.
Good to know. At which point, most of the room is empty. Most of the students have fled. And Calriel Goldpetal, along with Fury and two other officers that you are not familiar with, rounds the corner. Looking absolutely despondent but unsurprised.
Was it?
Well, one must be glad that not everything is on fire.
It was, but thank you.
A little fire, and Hex is kind of dusting herself down at this point. Am I to believe that I have been called precisely for the reason of, and motions towards Hans and the man that Hans is technically sitting atop of right now, as though that chair is a throne.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Tink kind of like walks up beside him and is like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it.
Indeed, a joy. And he's kind of going to edge over towards Mr. Sullivan with a short snap of Hans, get down. To which Hans was a very lazy salute and just kind of rolls out of the chair and onto the floor. And the group of officials, of soldiers that are with General Carriel Goldpetal set about arresting Mr. Sullivan, who is currently still looking terrified.
Good.
And the moment they start to dig him out from under the rubble, starts flailing like a madman. Along with a large amount of bluster. Fortunately, for everybody involved, the 3 soldiers that Cal has brought with him, including Fury, are incredibly strong and manage to hold him back while restraining him.
Well, that's good, because none of us can do that.
Yeah.
And you see Cal kind of draw up to his full height, looking down at Mr. Sullivan. Such reprehensible behaviour in public. Fear I had expected better of a noble house. And the fear that had been running through Mr. Sullivan from Yulie's spell redoubles into something absolutely manic as Mr. Sullivan goes pale, tinged with green around the edges. They haul him up onto his feet and down out of the common room into the hallway. And Cal looks directly at you, Tink.
Mm-hmm.
I really hadn't expected quite such a wild streak.
He like points to himself. He's like, me.
In the Sullivans.
Oh, that. He kind of like tilts a head to the side, having met several Sullivans at this point in his life. I mean, the kids are generally fine.
Indeed. I shall take your word for it. I've had no dealings with any of them at this point.
Yeah.
The honor in me wants to offer to help with whatever this is, and a hand motions towards what remains of the barricade. But I really don't want to.
I mean,
That's fine.
to be
I have
fair, I think that's
mending-
kind of Hans's purview. You're the prefect now, right? Tink just looks at him.
To which Hans holds up 2 hands and is just like, who? What? I do not know what you mean. I didn't do a single thing. Was not me.
No, but you don't have to do anything. You're in charge of the students of this dorm. That's what being prefect is. It isn't just some fancy title.
I forgot. I have power. And you see like the splash of evil
Motherfucker.
goes across his face.
Yeah, the power to clean this the fuck up.
Well, considering that you are also one of the students that I can boss around, Tink, get the mop. Zanthe,
No.
get the buckets.
I think Tink just like shrugs and he's like, yeah, good luck, bud. And he's just gonna like walk out in the hall.
And you hear before you leave the faint strains of Cal being like, Hans, you do realize that being given power means absolutely nothing if you don't know how to wield it.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson Tink is trying to teach him.
And with that, we are going to take a short break.
Wonderful.
Thank you all so much for watching part 1. This is Hellions of Carnocht. We will be back after a short break where we will just grab some hydration, get up and stretch. We advise that you at home do exactly the same. If you would like to check out the Discord in the interim, it is there and it is active. And we'll see you soon.
Acquire your hydration, folks.
BRB. Welcome back.
Hi.
Hi, I've been giving everybody musical education in the break. I took it upon myself to educate in the music of the 70s. Mm-hmm. It was
I
good.
ignored the lesson and ate katsudon instead.
What?
What?
I said I ignored the lesson and I ate katsudon instead.
Oh, nice.
There, I've shared it with the
Oh.
Discord. Continue.
Get booted out again.
You lost me for a moment there.
Oh.
I am so sorry. I cut out.
Hello, welcome back.
This is just the session of technical difficulties.
Truly.
But me cutting out is never quite as funny as Wilk just showing up on screen.
Yeah.
Sorry, but I'm also not sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It was beautiful.
This is what we wanted.
It's what we deserve.
Just chaos.
Yeah.
Bitches, bros, and non-binary hoes, welcome back to the second part of Hellions of Carnocht.
Thank you.
After the first half, wherein our intrepid Hellions caused no end of trouble, or rather, saved a party from no end of trouble. They got a noble arrested,
Hell yeah.
Good.
tore down a barricade, set fire to a door, jumped out of a window, became a raven, and called the military on a college student party.
Yes.
I will say Hex was the one that caught fire to the barricade, okay? It wasn't.
I'm sorry, Zanthe. Who gave Hex the idea?
I just asked her if she wanted to do anything. I'm
Yeah,
not
to be
gonna
fair,
deny
Hex was like,
fire.
I could set it on fire.
Yeah. And
Hex brought up
sometimes-
fire.
Sometimes
That's true.
your brother is a general in the military, and you know he's not going to arrest any of the students, so why not give him a call?
I think that's called nepotism.
It is! And Tink will use it. Thank you.
As he should.
Going into part 2, as we get back to our story. The night settles. Hans enlists the help of Fury to clean up the barricade. Mr. Sullivan ends up somewhere you guys don't know, but definitely apprehended. Tink, you go back with Balial to what turns out to be a Small, shabby little townhouse on the outskirts of the city. Not too far from the school. Monty, you are secreted off somewhere in the arms of Lawrence, who is very worriedly carrying a raven. And for Zanthe and Yulie, the night passes.
Hooing.
What?
For Zanthe and Yulie, the night passes quite quietly. Is there anything that you would like to do with your evening before we skip to tomorrow?
Yulie would definitely look at the 2 books that she has in her cardigan that she took.
Yulie,
Mm.
one book is a checkbook for the account of the estate of Sullivan.
Why does he just have that on him? Okay.
This is why he's bankrupt.
It is a book of mark, meaning that every note in there is left blank, and you can just fill it in, and they're all already sealed.
Oh my
Oh
god.
my god. It's the blank check movie, but D&D.
Yeah.
Great.
Although we do know that this account might bounce.
Yeah. Also, you might be ruining Monty's life.
Yeah, look, I don't plan on using it.
Oh.
To be clear.
I mean, to be
Oh,
fair,
no,
Monty's
you
already
should.
been disowned by his dad.
Not
in
yet.
previous
I mean, it hasn't
lives.
happened yet.
No. But
In one of the previous loops, Monty was disowned by the Sullivans for a very small reason.
yeah, everyone
Yeah,
gets
for
accused
murder
of
that
murder
he actually
sometimes.
committed.
Yeah, like it's just a little murder.
Wasn't he literally sent here to be an assassin?
Yeah.
Yep.
His
And they're
family
like,
wasn't angry that he
but you
killed
killed
somebody.
somebody.
His family was angry that he got caught.
I see.
Well, they're fucking bitches. So like, I don't know what they really want from him at this point.
The second book that is now in your possession after this eventful evening
Yeah.
is the one that was The Alchemic Uses of Bone.
Yes.
You've already flipped through it once. Or rather, knocked it open to see what was inside.
Yeah, I saw 1 page of it.
Would you like to read through from the beginning?
I would.
Okay. Roll me just a straight up intelligence.
Hoo. Straight intelligence. Let's go, baby. Wait, I can re-roll it.
Oh, thank God. Thank God it's a one.
The relief in that
No,
declaration.
it doesn't. It literally does. This is my life, guys. I rolled a 1 and then I rolled a 2. So
Oh my God.
I
It
can't
happens
read.
so
What
often.
are books?
That is absolutely fine. You try to crack open the book. Book won't open.
Oh my god.
The book feels threatened now.
Yeah.
Before it was relaxed.
Yulie makes the book a cup of tea.
Genuinely?
Yulie pats the book. Yeah.
As DM, I have to ask, genuinely?
Okay, would Yulie come to the conclusion that she thinks that this book might, because she was able to open it before and she can't
Yes.
open it now.
Yes.
So I think the natural conclusion that she would probably come to is like a proximity thing to whoever the book belonged to.
Mhm.
But she has also used and had books that have like a counterpart as well. So I think
Mhm.
maybe she wouldn't necessarily make it tea, but she would try to like talk to it to see if like there's somebody on the other side that can hear her, or if there's like some sort of a magical like connection with it.
What do you say to the book?
Okay. She's gonna try to open it and get a little frustrated and then pace around a little bit and then say, okay, hi. I don't know if anybody can hear me or if if well, I was able to open I opened it before and I can't open it now. Or you now? Oh my gosh, is it are there alive books? Are you in a live book maybe and you don't want me to open you? That's fine if you don't. Consent is key, but I'm curious what's in the book. If I
Roll
could
roll persuasion.
Okay. A 16.
Roll perception.
Oh my god. Another 16.
Another 16. Okay. You notice cover of the book bounces ever so slightly.
Oh my gosh, you are. Oh my gosh, you're alive. Uh, I don't know okay. Sorry. Okay. Hi, I'm Yulie. I don't know if books have names, but on the cover um, it says alchemic uses of bone. Is that your name or is that a pretend name for you?
Roll perception.
I was gonna say this is a very detailed question to ask a book.
It's a 6. Well, I still don't know if it can like respond properly
I
or not.
know.
As far as you can see, the book does not move.
Okay. Okay, sorry. That was too much. I'm Yulie, and I'm very curious about what is written in you. If you are okay with me reading even just a specific part, um, I won't try to open you. I will let you open yourself. Is that okay? Is that fair?
Roll persuasion.
Okay. A 14.
The cover of the book opens.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. She'll look at it.
Page of the book. There is a very roughly typed title that declares itself matters of the mundane, the innate, and the arcane,
Innate
and their applications in life, death, and the beyond.
tunes in life, death, and the beyond. Okay, she'll read that out loud.
The subtitle is a cookbook.
Is what?
A cookbook by A.R. Wilkins.
By
You
A.R.
did it.
Wilson. A cookbook? Do I know that name?
History.
18. I'm gonna roll bad again real soon here. I feel it on the wind.
You do actually know the name A.R. Wilkins. A.R. Wilkins is a highly renowned writer of recipes, a household name, particularly like most well known for their series on stews from around the world.
Okay. Okay. Matters of the mundane, The innate and the arcane, their applications in life, death, and the beyond. A cookbook by A.R. Wilk. A cookbook? A cookbook? For real? Waits for an answer.
The next page flips across. You notice it kind of flips a couple of pages to the actual opening of the book. It says, "A foreword by A.R. Wilkins."
Okay.
Heretofore you shall read my adventures in arcane matters across the world and their applications in everyday life. Which one of us, of course, does not want immortality? Which one of us does not grasp for it with the very essence that makes us? Well, I set off across the world to try and find the answers to that ever-yearning want. I provide a thank you to my team, without whom I would not have been able to find all of the ingredients upon my list, let alone the people who made these recipes possible. To you, dear reader, I have the utmost hope that you will find the recipes within delectable in every single way. The page flips.
Okay.
And in much the way that recipe bloggers write their entire life story before you get to a recipe, you are met with several paragraphs of text. The subtitle upon this page is "An Introduction to Matters Beyond the World." And then a further subtitle, "Pastries and Their Filling." I'm reading through the text beneath that if you would like to continue.
Yeah. I mean, Yulie plans on reading as much as the book allows her to read, basically.
There is a cavorting tale of having gone into the heart of the Elven lands and discovering the way that they imbued magic into food. Most specifically, pastries that they dole out on special holidays that they believe connects them to their ancestors. The following paragraphs are tearing apart the mystique of these holidays, along with the ways in which the rituals of said holidays are very similar to scrying and planeswalking. And what follows those several paragraphs of explanation is a recipe for pastries.
How
It looks like a
difficult
very
does
normal
it look?
recipe for pastries. How
Okay.
difficult does it look?
Mm-hmm.
Not that difficult. Anybody with a handle on choux pastry should be able to make it.
Excuse me, book. Would you be all right with me? I would like to cast a spell to see what sort of magic might be on you
The book
or in
shuts.
you. Oh, okay, never mind. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. We just met. Okay. I'm sorry. I won't. I promise I won't. Not unless you say it's okay, please.
Almost reluctantly, the book opens back to where you were.
I guess I was asking because I this recipe seems very um she's now like really worried she's gonna offend the book again. I'm I guess I'm wondering if there's something that I don't see, maybe. because sometimes wizards or really anybody who wants to write a book, there are ways to hide more information in the book than what is seen just normally. So I guess I was curious whether or not there was something more to be seen. That's all. I wasn't trying to do anything weird. I don't think, unless that's weird.
You see, once again, as though blown by the wind, several pages turn. Upon a different title page.
Okay. What's she say? What's
Grind,
it say?
grind down bones to make your bread.
Nope. Mm-hmm.
That's just the title page.
Okay.
And after you've read it, it flips. And there is a recipe for bread that is shaped like bones, that has been copied down ostensibly from Orcish culture.
Okay. But it looks like it's the same sort of like typewriter font. Like
Yes,
it's a
yes.
okay.
It's the same sort of font.
Okay. Interesting.
And the moment that you've read through that page, the book flips almost onto its other side to open at the very back. Where there is tiny handwritten scrawling.
Mm-hmm.
And the scroll, there is what appears to be a sigil upon the back that is written in red. And beneath it, written in a different ink, are the names of two books. One is Soups and How to Gobble Them
Okay.
by A.R. Wilkins.
Yep.
And Do Not Slurp Your Stew by A.R. Wilkins.
The man knew how to name a book. Okay, so there's a sigil in red. Do I recognize it?
Roll me Arcane.
Okay.
Arcana, even.
12.
The 12? No, I'm afraid you do not recognize that sigil.
Okay. Okay.
I will say it doesn't even look familiar to the sigils of magic that you are taught,
Okay.
which would be prolific across this continent.
Are you there's two book titles here. Do you want me to find them? Are you showing them to me for a reason?
You see the pages flip another time to yet another title of a recipe, which is Positivity and How to Bottle.
Okay. I'm going to take that as a yes. If it's actually a no, slam shut now.
It remains open.
Okay. 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 I can do that. I can do that. Um I'll f- I'll I'll try to find these books. Are they alive like you?
It remains open on the positivity page.
Okay. Okay. This is so fun. This is exciting. I'm friends with a book. Okay. All right. I'll find these books.
You see that the pages flip across, open to another subtitle that just says, "Friends taste better with beer."
I find some of these titles concerning, but I'm understanding better how to communicate with you, so it's fine.
I like this book.
Me too. Yeah,
Fuckers.
she'll spend the rest of the night, I guess, reading whatever it's willing to let her read.
Roll me a persuasion.
A 12.
12. Wonderful. Okay. You don't manage to get very far into the book without it kind of interrupting you.
Okay.
The point where you read through the first chapter of recipes, which is about 6 recipes, so a decentish chapter, that goes into the methodology of different pastries and how to make them. And the moment that you get to the end of that chapter, it will not let you turn another page. It just keeps
Okay.
shutting. Or it flips back to the beginning of that chapter.
Okay. You're tired. I get it. I'm tired too. We should sleep. We should sleep. Go to bed and not lie awake all night thinking about the book in my room that's alive. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sleep. So a good good night, book. Good good what should I call you? Good night. Mundane? Mm, good night. Good night, Matters? Can I call you Matters? That's cute.
It shuts.
Okay, we'll workshop it. It's okay. She goes to bed.
Amazing.
Would anybody else like to do something before the night is out?
I would if no one else has something they want to do.
Do it.
Do it. I think I would like to. Okay, what's the room situation? First, I have to figure out. Did Monty didn't come back to the dorm, right?
Monty has not returned to the dorm.
Okay.
You are alone in your dorm room. Hex is set up on the sofa in the common room.
Okay. Is she asleep?
Are you going to go check?
I did when I left her. Was she sleeping?
When
Or
you
is
left her, she was sleeping. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. He's gonna just chill by himself, and he's gonna actually try to cast Find Familiar.
You sit down and start the ritual to cast Find Familiar and feel the weave flow through you. And as it does, the pull of it is so strong that you feel it tug at your hair and at your clothes until you feel a presence in front of you.
What do I see?
Currently, you just see light.
um, just gonna kind of stare at it for a second and kind of, hello, did I do this right? And he starts like looking at his supplies.
Feel a nudge of something at the back of your mind that is almost reluctant. Like a slow, sulky jab.
Don't like that.
And then the light in front of you starts to solidify, drawing out the shape of a dog.
Yeah.
Big pointed ears, little stubby legs. And you see before you a very familiar dog, a dog that you had possessed in a previous loop, and who has been showing up constantly since your very first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
You see Cheese, the blink corgi,
Yeah.
sitting in front of you,
I'm gonna
wagging his little stubby tail, looking very happy.
I'm gonna squish his face.
He lets his face be squished and gives a little.
I don't know how much you can understand me right now, but if you don't want to, if you're okay with this, this is really fucking cool. But you don't have to do this if you don't.
You instantly end up with like a tongue all over your face with doggy
Okay.
kisses.
He's gonna pet his corgi.
There is nothing but like happy little barks and little and more little kisses and like dancy paws,
Amazing.
excited paws.
He's gonna kind of just pet Cheese for a little bit and play with him, and then kind of after a couple of minutes, he's just gonna sit Cheese next to him. I'm gonna do something kind of weird. I'd kind of like it if you stay here. I know you can just kind of go wherever you want, but
Cheese just flops completely over your lap.
he gives him a piece of candy. Wait, does he not? He thinks it's drugs. He wouldn't give him a piece of candy.
Oh my god.
Nice save.
Yeah, no. He's gonna lay back on his bed and he's just gonna kind of like
The further you lay back, the more Cheese shuffles to like lie on your belly.
perfect.
You're covered in corgi.
Good. That's how I want to go. He's just gonna kind of think in his head. Are you still there too?
There is an echoing silence.
Gonna kind of
Something kind of slithers at the back of your perception.
He's gonna speak aloud, like really quietly. Do I have to talk to you out loud?
No, of course you don't. That's dumb.
Okay. I mean, I thought it was reasonable. Have you been here this whole time?
That feeling that you got of reluctance and a jabbing at the back of your mind makes itself known again. Before, it's almost as though your vision is taken over. A blackness stretching out in front of you that slowly bleeds through into a vague, strange world made up of grey shapes. And in the center of those grey shapes is a dark figure whose only sharp and present feature is a gold mask.
What kind of mask?
Full mask, like a face,
Is
not
it
like
like
a skull.
not like a skull, like a face? Okay.
Yeah, like a drama mask. It's
Okay.
only mask. And it's almost as though their body is made of shadow that's constantly breaking apart and reforming itself.
How are you? Have you been good?
Oh, I'm sorry. Now you want to talk?
I just wanted to check if you were still here. I didn't know if you were still in my head during this.
Oh, glorious. Oh, yes, I'm present.
Okay.
Wasting away, but I'm present.
You don't have to be here. I don't it's you kind of came to me. I don't really you can leave if you want to.
You pick the dagger, you sign the accord, and you see that the figure kind of flops into what almost looks like a chair, but not quite.
I don't really know what dagger I don't know what you're talking about.
Look, an agreement was made between us, whether or not you recognize it or don't.
Don't remember agreeing to anything. Is this something that I'm supposed to remember?
Three. Zanthe.
What did you say? I didn't hear it.
Roll history.
Oh, okay. Got a 2. So it goes to 3.
What was that, sorry?
It's a 3 total.
3 total.
Yes.
You don't remember it.
Yeah, I don't remember it. I Can you just clarify what exactly I agreed to?
A hand waves through the air, and it waves almost as though it's moving through molasses, and looks more like just a shape as it does, vague and undefined. And 2 shadows, 2 very miniature shadows, with little masks, one that is obviously meant to be you, and one that is obviously meant to be this entity, stand opposite each other. And you see the one mask that is represented as you starts panicking diligently as other little shadows are attacking. And there's a little, oh, me, save me, everything's going badly. And then the gold mask figure is like, I shall save you. I'm here. Yes, please, save me. I need power. I give you power.
He is just staring blankly at all this.
That is precisely how it happened.
Okay, great.
You
I
see
don't
the little figures on the floor kind of looking up at you.
I again don't really remember that part either, but that's great. So you're just here then. This is how we are.
You see the figure waves their hand again, and suddenly the little mask person that is you is surrounded by other little mask people that are quite obviously Tink and Monty and Belial. And the little mask person in gold is like, your friends! They are so stupid! Pick up the mask before you and obtain your power! And the little actor that is you is like, no! I won't do it because I don't think you're cool enough!
Are you did I hurt your feelings? Did you fucking did you think I didn't pick up the mouse because I didn't think you were cool? Is that really the
Figure kind of waves its hand, and all of the tiny little actors disappear. And it just sits back and crosses a leg. You
I
shunned me.
I shunned you because you were telling me to kill Tink. Like I don't really think that's
There's been a little bit of murder.
don't think there's little bit
Your
of
friends have such
murder.
wonderful faces.
I don't like it when you say that.
We should wear them.
Oh my god. See, this is not like I think you think I'm responding to this like, "Oh, this isn't fucking cool. This is really scary actually." And you're telling me to kill my friends and wear their faces after
The
they're
little
dead.
figure reappears and it's like, oh, so scared. Ah.
I don't even need to kill them to wear their faces. I can just do it.
The figure with the gold mask just kind of looks at you and goes, I don't think you have the balls to just wear their faces.
I've done it in the past. I've the
Oh,
first
not
time
your
that
paltry tricks. No, 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 no. When you wear somebody's face, you should embody them.
I
And you see the figure kind of, there's a shiver that goes over it completely. And standing in front of you is suddenly Monty.
Yeah, okay, great. What do you want? Like why is this important to you?
I, uh, I mean, Zanthe, everything would just be better if we could just be who we needed to be.
I don't understand.
Another shiver goes over it, and the figure in front of you is now Tink. Well, you see, like, if we just put everything together and take away everybody's personalities, we can be whoever we want to be. That's pretty cool.
Okay, first off, that's pretty good. I'll give you that. But I don't really see the need in this. I feel like this is a you want and not really like a me want. I don't really want to kill my friends and take their
The figure
personalities.
shivers and becomes your brother. Staring at you with cold eyes.
Can you stop that?
Zanthe, I really think that you underestimate the amount of power that this affords you.
I don't want power. That's not.
You want freedom. You want belonging. This could give you both.
I don't think taking away that everyone that accepts me is going to give me a place to belong.
The figure shivers until it's once more a gold mask and a shadow. So maybe starting from the aspect of taking away your friends was a bit of a mistake. But consider your enemies. And it does like shadowy jazz hands.
Okay. I'll who exactly are my enemies? Are you is it you want me to fucking kill like Ilya and Abraxas and shit like that? Because I don't think I could really take any of them on.
Not alone. Not
I
until certain factors are met.
yeah,
But you
I
want to belong, right? You want to be safe.
this doesn't really feel like safety to me. This feels like maybe just for me, but it doesn't feel like for any of my friends.
We're treading the loop round and round and round again. It means that nothing has to change.
Yeah.
Well, we can make that happen without the loops. And
Do you?
everything can be wonderful. And it kind of spreads its arms out, and the room around you completely changes to the Atticus common room with all of your friends. Like, you watch as Monty and Yulie and Tink and Yenna are all kind of just studying and laughing. And it's warm and it's happy, and the moment that they see you, they beckon you over. And there is no way that it couldn't feel comforting.
Okay, I still don't really understand. Is this something you want? Is this what you're trying to get? Because I don't think I
The
understand.
two warm hands rest on your shoulders from behind you. You are one of my children, and all I have ever wanted is for them to be safe. I have found in the past having as many faces accessible as possible does that.
Okay. But people have to die for me to get their faces? Is that
Not always. But if there's no one around to argue that that face is yours, well,
okay? Well, um, that's
the
very
killing, I'm open to negotiation.
okay. What negotiation? What is the less killing people option to this? Because this is just I don't. Mm.
Leave it with me and I'll give you a taste. And then suddenly you're back in your dorm room.
Say leave with you?
said, leave it with me and I'll give you a taste.
Okay, just don't kill any of my friends, please. Or just anyone for the most part, if you can do that.
You feel something that's almost acquiescence just kind of prods at the back of your head.
Okay. It's gonna just look at Cheese and just sigh.
Cheese does a big old doggy yawn and then goes, huff,
Yeah, me too, buddy.
and you end up with like a cold doggy nose all over your face.
He loves that as much as I do.
And unless anybody else would like to do anything tonight, I ask none too subtly.
No.
I mean, as far as I know, we're just going to bed.
Yep.
So
I mean, like this can be a like when we wake up, where the fuck did I end up?
Wouldn't you like to know, Monty?
I
And
would
anybody who would
love-
like to know should definitely tune in next week.
God
Mhm.
damn it.
I knew it was coming. Fucking still gets to me anyways.
Gets me every time.
Yeah.
Yep.
I realize it was a bit of a short second half, but thank you so much for joining us for the end of tonight's session. We will see you guys next Monday on the same D&D same D&D time, same D&D channel. Yeah, there we go. That's it. That's what I was going for.
Nice.
If you like what you've seen tonight, please consider giving us a follow. We also have all of the past episodes of Hellions up on YouTube if you wanted to check that out. We also have a Discord that you can take a peek at where you can go and talk to people who have also watched and perhaps liked the show. We've got fan art on there too, which is pretty amazing. We were all laughing at it during the break. Thank you so much, Fire Seal.
Yes, very good.
We also have a Patreon if you would like to consider supporting us, where we put up little postscripts behind the scenes and little off-camera moments. We also have a spice rack and some homebrew content on there for you to take a peek at as well. And we run other shows, such as Sleepless Nights, Sleepless City, Sleepless Nights.
I think it's Sleepless Nights. Yeah.
Sleepless Nights.
City.
I can't look at my list right now on mobile, and I always get the name of that one mixed up.
Yeah, I think they're still on a bit of a hiatus for now.
Yeah, they are still on a bit of a hiatus, but it's a City of Mist game, which is pretty cool. They're wrapping up their first season as we speak, and they'll be starting a new season soon. There's also Reckoning and Dawn's Shadow, which takes place every Thursday, which is a really cool post-colonial Asian-inspired fantasy D&D 5e play, which is great. The DM for that, Fabs, is fantastic, and you guys should check it out if it sounds up your alley. But as for us, we'll be toddling back next Monday.
Yeah.
And until then, keep rolling. See you later, friends.
Bye.
Thanks for coming. Bye.
Bye.